Testing, testing, testing. Well, I think we can get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the session of helping our anxious kids through understanding and intervention. My name is Jan Flayton, and I'll be your host today. I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items, and then Monica McConkey will introduce herself, and then we can get started. If you could type your name and credentials and email and faculty name in the chat box. So that way we can keep track of everyone in attendance. As part of participation in this echo session, we ask that you have your cameras turned on, although I know it's hard when you're trying to eat lunch but it's just a more engaging community practice. And please remember to mute your audio when you're not speaking. When asking a question, you have two options. You can either unmute and ask the question, or if you don't want to interrupt, you can utilize the chat feature, and then we can, one of us will ask the question when there is a chance. Okay. I've put the pretest in the chat for you to complete, and I'll give you a couple minutes to complete that. Towards the end of this session, I'm going to share a couple of links. One will be the post-test, and then the other one will be the evaluation. And just make sure that you add your name and degree or position in the chat. So in following this session, you will also receive an email that contains the link to the evaluation and then slides that were presented today. So in order to receive a continuing education credit for this session, you're going to need to complete the evaluation. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Monica to introduce herself and start the session. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jan. Good to be here with you all. I'm going to share my slides. Okay. And my computer is doing this weird thing where my slide deck is like way off to the side. So I just want to make sure for you all, you can see it.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. Big topic, right? Anxious kids and anxiety. Such a big issue in our world today. But to just kick things off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Monica McConkey, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Minnesota. This year is 30 years that I've been in the behavioral health field, which seems kind of unbelievable. But for the first 14 years, I worked first in a juvenile justice prevention program. And then for the next 12 years, I was school-based mental health in a school on the school district within the bounds of the White Earth Indian Reservation in Minnesota. The core of my learning really happened in those 12, 14 years of direct service work with kids and their families. Since that time, I have served in a variety of administrative capacities in Minnesota and North Dakota, and I currently have a private practice called Eyes on the Horizon Consulting, and my focus is really on rural mental health, and I specialize in mental health and agriculture. So most of my days are spent either on farms and ranches or on the phone with farmers or doing Zoom sessions with farmers or farm family members. So that's just a little bit about who I am. I have 3 kids of my own, all in their early 20s, which the closer they get to 26 is very exciting to me because that's when they say the prefrontal cortex is completely fully developed. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But it just kicks in that rational thinking, which ties in, of course, to stress and anxiety. So we're going to cover, and I will run through things and then leave time for us to just talk about what's on your mind, what you're seeing, what has worked for you. I mean, I think we best learn from each other. So I can give you the information, but please, I'm hoping you all will share experiences as well. We're going to just talk about what anxiety in kids looks like. We're going to talk about the stress response and the role of the vagus nerve in that stress response. I think that's fascinating information. And then ways to help an anxious child calm. And then I'll give some resources at the end that could be good resources to pass on to parents, older kids, just depending on who you're encountering. Okay, so let's start. What does anxiety in kids look like? And we'll break it down by age group because, of course, developmentally, anxiety, just like any other stressor, mental health disorder, mental health concern, can look different based on age with some similarities. And we'll run through this fairly quickly because I really want to get to the piece of the stress response. But in our preschool age kids, what we notice are a number of things really clearly seen by us. So it's really rooted in their behavior because that's how they're functioning, right? That's how kids let us know something is not right. It's through the acting out or the change in their behavior. So anxiety in preschool age kids might look like decreased appetite. It might look like an increase in acting out, which is hard because they don't often have the words. So when we say to them, "What's wrong? Why did you do this?" They don't have the words to express what's going on. I mean, sometimes adults don't have the words to express why we do the things we do. They may be complaining of things like stomach aches, nightmares, that separation anxiety, like I don't want to leave to go to bed. I want to stay in bed with mom and dad, that clinginess, or you may see regression. So maybe this is a kiddo who's been potty trained and all of a sudden they're back to wetting the bed or having accidents. So there's a regression. Sometimes the regression is even in language, that with higher stress levels or anxiety or trauma, we'll see a regression in their spoken language and they revert back to either not talking or what we'd call like baby talking. One example of this, I guess this would be more in elementary age. It was my middle son was in kindergarten and he, for weeks and weeks would have these, during the school week, during the week, have intense stomach pain. And we were trying, like, is it a gluten thing? Is it dairy? What is going on? So we were switching up diet. And then there was a week well into the school year that he complained not once. And so we started to really talk about it, like, what's going on this week? You're not having stomach aches. Have you changed your eating? It's like a puzzle. And what had happened was one of the teachers that he went to during his day was on vacation. And when we kind of put the pieces together, she was a teacher that even with the little kindergartners, if they didn't do something correctly or finish a project or whatever, she kind of called them out in front of their peers. And he was never called out, but he had that fear and that anxiety and that worry that it would happen. And that for weeks appeared, that anxiety appeared as stomach upset every morning. He didn't know. He couldn't put that into words. We didn't know. Uh, and it just took that happening for us to be able to figure it out. So in elementary age, we may see appetite changes. They're becoming more verbal, so will hear complaining. They may be refusing to cooperate or do chores or help or do their homework. Uh, their behavior may look attention seeking, uh, and that could be both positive or negative. Uh, they may isolate, they may withdraw, there may be acting out behaviors. They could be having those headaches, stomach ache, those somatoform, psychosomatic type of symptoms. Um, and they may have new fears that pop up. So anxiety, if you've ever had anxiety or experienced anxiety, you know it really can feed off of what starts out as maybe one thing, all of a sudden turns into something else and bigger and more fear and more worry, and it gets away from us. And that can happen with these kiddos as well. These are sometimes kids that will have, we call it clingy behavior. So on the playground, they're going to stand next to the staff member or the para. They always want to be the helper. They want to be with the teacher, with the adult, instead of out with their peers. Okay, then we get to, ooh, fun times, middle school age, right? That kind of 5th through 8th grade. Again, appetite changes, and that ties into what we're going to talk about with stress response and the vagus nerve and how that impacts our stomach. Problem sleeping. We may see defiance, that refusal, that disrespect. We may see that withdrawal and isolating. And again, the physical symptoms, headaches, stomach aches, muscle aches, emotional responses. So they may be very easy to be brought to tears or to an anger, kind of an outrage response that just seems like it's too much. Like, why are we seeing this kind of a big reaction over a seemingly small, in our eyes, small issue? And we'll talk about that more in the brain development piece. Nail biting. I've seen kids who intense anxiety, they pulled their eyebrows out, or they pull their hair out, or they're picking skin. So a lot of like physical actions you might see. And then self-harm. So this is the age where it's not unusual for us to see some self-mutilation, cutting, hair pulling, skin burning, skin rubbing with an eraser, things like that. And then, of course, in this age also is when we'll start to see some experimentation with substance use. And this is the time where anxious kids can discover that, you know what, when I drink alcohol, it takes that worry away. When I use marijuana, it takes that worry away. So it's really leading into kind of that precursor of addiction when they're seeing the benefit of using substances to ease their anxiety. Okay, and then we have our high school kiddos. We may see increased sleeping during the day, not sleeping at night. What's hard about all of this is there are pieces of all of this that are very developmentally normal. Like we have a non-anxious kid is going to go through some of this, but we may see it a little bit more advanced in kids who are also struggling with anxiety. Also, that emotional reactivity, difficulty concentrating on a task, finishing tasks might be hard. Those physical symptoms again, headache, stomach ache, muscle aches. We may see aggression, isolation, withdrawal, substance use, and again, the self-harm or risk-taking behavior. I will also say with high schoolers and middle schoolers, that age group, they're becoming more verbal. So they may be at the point of being able to, with the right type of questioning and prompts, do a better job at describing what's happening for them. They may be able to follow patterns, like when do you feel the anxiety? What does the anxiety feel like? You know, is it nervous? Do you feel your face turning red? Do you feel, you know, yourself getting hot? So their brain is developing to the point that they're going to be able to be a little more verbal and help look for patterns or look for what is causing that anxiety, and also triggers. So maybe it's things that have happened in the past and they're being triggered by some recurrence that is telling their brain they're in trouble. And that trigger is setting off a response that does not make sense in the moment. And I'll talk more about that. So causes, goodness, really varied, right? When we talk about that adolescent age group, we see anxiety over school performance, academics, peers, of course, relationships, how people see me, the demands that are caused from social media and fitting in, and how to navigate my presence on social media. Life circumstances that are just hard. I mean, we have adolescents dealing with health issues and you know, other difficult family situations. Future decisions weigh heavy on these kiddos, and of course their bodies are continuing to change. For children, it can be things like any kind of loss or death, any kind of separation that really rocks their sense of security and stability. And again, they may not be able to necessarily verbalize that. If they're a witness to violence or a victim of violence or abuse, if they have moved frequently and they don't have that stability of a predictable routine day because of the moves and the changes in family. New people living in their home would be another example of that. Illnesses, school-related issues. So what I really want to get into is talking about the stress response. This is the stress response we all experience. So when we sense a stressor, and again, let me just go back to triggers. If something has happened to us in the past, there's a part of our brain, you could see it here, it's called the amygdala, and it's the size of an almond, right here by our ear. That is the emotional center of our brain. In that part of our brain, emotions and memories are like this. That is why we can hear a song that we loved in high school, and it brings all these good, happy memories as we're singing along to it. That happiness, that emotion that comes with hearing that song is coming from the amygdala, where our emotions and memories are stored together, linked together. It could also be, for me, it's the funniest things. I'll be scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, and there'll be a post about, like, if you grew up in the 80s or 70s, these were toys you played with. And all of a sudden, there's these toys that I loved and adored in my childhood, and I just get this warm feeling running through me. And that's coming from my amygdala because my brain remembers the good times I had playing with those toys. So this is also true, though, with very stressful um, happenings in our past, abuse, neglect, anything that rocked our sense of stability or structure or security. That emotion is linked in that part of the brain to the event that happened. One of my favorite examples of this, if you have not read the book, What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, really good book to read to understand this in children. But there was a story in that book, and it's about a child who was in the foster care system, kind of bounced around foster homes and schools. And he had worked with Dr. Perry. Dr. Perry had been present in supervised visitation that child had had with his biological father. And fast forward, child was, I think, somewhere in the age range of 8, 9 years old in a new school. It was going very well. So he was in a foster placement. There was good stability, structure, routine, safety. And there was a change in teaching staff during the year. And this child who had been doing really well, all of a sudden was acting out, was tearing up the room, was refusing to do homework. I mean, it completely, his functioning completely declined. So the school called Dr. Perry in to help figure out what's going on. He was doing fine. Now he's not doing fine. As soon as Dr. Perry sat down with the new teacher, who was a male, he realized that teacher was wearing the same cologne that kiddo's dad wore. Just that scent of that cologne was enough to throw that child into a stress response because that part of his brain, the amygdala, had memories of him being abused and neglected when with his dad, who had that same smell. Now, did he know that? Could he verbalize that? Not at all. So had that link not been made with Dr. Perry kind of crossing over both environments, it may have well not been known what was happening to that child. So we have to keep that in mind, that our senses, touch, taste, smell, hearing, sight, are very strongly linked to emotions of things we've experienced in the past. So I worked with an adult who was in a car accident on an icy road. Every time they were even predicting freezing rain or potentially not great road conditions, he went into a stress response because it was very linked in his brain, in the amygdala, that icy roads equals accident, unsafe circumstances, what have you. Okay. So in our kids, this is happening, but they're not necessarily able to verbalize or consciously know what's triggering them. Okay. So the trigger would be a stressful incident that kicks this off, but we can broaden it out. Any stressful incident, perceived, factual, current, future. So it could be something we're worried about happening, throws us into this stress response. So what happens? That little piece of the brain we've been talking about is the first filter. So information goes there based on our history. There's kind of a decision made. Could this adversely affect us in any way? If no, then we typically calm and go about our business. If yes, then the danger signal goes to the hypothalamus and then it communicates to the whole rest of our body. And we will see that surge in adrenaline, the fast heartbeat, the pulse rate and blood pressure going up, rapid shallow breathing. Our senses get really sharp, and we often release glucose and fats to give us energy to help us fight or flee, right? We go into that fight or flight is the typical term that we use for stress response. Life-saving mechanism when it's life or death. So the example I give is, let's say you're in the pasture. I work with farmers, so farming analogy here. You're in the pasture, a bull starts chasing you, and you immediately act, right? That's this response, life-saving. You don't have to stop and think, because in those bullet points, thinking has no part. So we don't have to, in those times of emergency, bull chasing us, we don't have to think through A, I can run, B, I can yell, C, I can climb a tree, D, I can lay down and play dead. We don't have to do that because of this, which is good. The problem is that in our lives, the majority of stressors that happen to us are not life and death. They are like everyday stressors. We still have the same response. Our thinking turns off. It's called the amygdala hijack. Our thinking turns off, our emotions flare, and we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is another one. Fawn is like people pleasing. Okay, so like, are you okay? Are you mad at me? Really being hyper vigilant about other people. Typically, after the threat is gone, we return to normal levels of cortisol, adrenaline, blood pressure, heartbeat. For people, kids in chronic stress situations, they don't return to baseline. They're always up here. This is all where the vagus nerve comes in. This is the true like mind-body connection. So the vagus nerve is a nerve that goes from our brain stem through the core of our body, and it connects all of these organs. This is why if you ever have to like stand up in front of 300 people in an auditorium, your heart starts beating and your face might turn red, because your brain, that stress signal is going out to your body and it's impacting certain organs. This is different for people. For some, their stomach hurts. For some, they have GI issues. For some, their throat closes off. For some, their heart beats faster. For some, they feel like there's a weight on their chest and they can't breathe. But this is the true mind-body connection. So when we are feeling anxiety or stress, that vagus nerve is sending out messages, sending out messages. The good news is there's ways that we can, what is called stimulating the vagus nerve, which to me, it should be the opposite, but it's basically like getting in touch with that vagus nerve to calm it down. So the role of the vagus nerve with emotional regulation, vagus means wandering. So not like Las Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, different Vegas. The vagus nerve, after it leaves the base of the brain, sends branches to the ears, the throat, the heart, the lungs, the digestive tract, with stops along the way at the vocal cords and diaphragm before descending into the abdomen. So it's all connected. It is the duty of the vagus nerve to orchestrate bodily responses to keep you safe or warn you about danger before you even have a chance to think about it. Without your awareness, the brain scans the environment or history for cues of danger, pitching you into high alert to fight or flee, or in extreme situations, shutting down. It also scans for cues of safety, which allow you enough calm to open you up to socially engage with others. So is it okay? Am I in an okay place to tell you how I'm feeling, to let my guard down? Okay, because information flows both to and from the brain via vagal pathways, the vagus nerve can be thought of as a major mind-body highway. Through the vagus nerve, you react to signals in your environment in ways that calm, alarm, or dysregulate the body. And these states, in turn, create emotional experience and play out in behavior. There is always, when we talk about behavior in kids, there is always a function to their behavior. When we ask them, why did you do that? Chances are they're not going to be able to tell us because this is what's happening. Okay, the vagus nerve is why your heart races and stomach curdles when you sense a threat, and why your breathing slows and your body relaxes when friends welcome you to their house. Both ways. So knowing all of that, how do we help these kiddos create calm, to become regulated? And there are a number of strategies we can use that help to stimulate that vagus nerve, which kind of is like getting control back. And these are some examples: chewing gum, singing or humming, slow, deep breaths, really huge, slow, deep breaths. Eating a piece of dark chocolate, who couldn't get on board with that, right? Gargling with room temperature water, splashing cold water on your face is huge. I know adults who do this. They don't know why, but they just know when they're in an elevated, dysregulated state, they will go to the sink and they will splash cold water on their face, and it helps the brain regulate. It helps that vagus nerve calm down. Breathing exercises, blowing bubbles. So sometimes with little kids, it's hard to get them to like box breathe, breathe into the count of four. That's hard with a 3 or 4-year-old, but they can blow bubbles. They can blow a pinwheel and make it spin. So sometimes we have to get really creative in how we meet them developmentally to make some of this happen. And of course, box breathing is just breathing slowly and deeply into the count of four, holding to the count of four, breathing out to the count of four, relaxing to the count of four. A box, 4 sides of a box. Another really fascinating piece, and I learned so much from, I co-presented down in Emmons County, North Dakota, with 2 occupational therapists who work in the school system. And they were amazing. I learned so much for them. But strategies they use, if you do research on what's called brain gym or brain games, you will find these types of activities. So brain games for calmness. I mean, you might get crossword puzzles or whatever, but it's specifically brain games to create calm. A lot of them, I would say all of them, have to do with crossing the midline of your body, which is all about getting the 2 hemispheres of your brain talking to each other. So you interrupt that emotional output of the vagus nerve, and you bring in what you can with the thinking, rational, calm side. So what does crossing the midline look like? These are activities that move your hands, feet, or eyes across the midline of your body. So it could be like, I know it's hard with my camera, but tapping your opposite hand to your opposite shoulder. It can be, my favorite one to do with kids is tapping your opposite hand to the opposite knee. Kind of like, okay, we're going to march, and you're going to tap this hand to this knee, this hand to this knee, cross body. I will tell you, I have done this with groups of kids. And I can tell in the group, within a few minutes of starting the talk, which kids are dysregulated. They're moving all over, they're bugging their neighbors, they're turning around, they're speaking out. When we do that activity with them, the cross hit, tap your knee with your opposite hand as you march, they completely resist crossing the midline. They are like this. And to get them to cross over, you like literally have to be one-on-one with them, helping them make that motion happen. Their brains are not comfortable with that cross body, which makes sense. They're in a state of elevated stress or anxiety or reaction, and it's very like linear. So any kind of movement across body is good. Hands, feet, eyes, some of the marching. Kids that struggle with it, some teachers have put like a red sticker on this hand and a red sticker on the opposite knee, green sticker on this hand, green sticker on the opposite knee. So it's like match the color of stickers. Wiping a table, get them to do a little housework while you're working on calming, right? So those swiping motions across body. So we're not just over here, we're across body, big sweeping motions. Figure eights, really a good one. If they can draw what we would call lazy eight, or a like the infinity symbol. So you go up and across, up, 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 up. They can draw it in the air, draw it on paper, use their non-dominant hand and draw, trace it, walk in a figure eight. That figure eight motion horizontally is crossing midline. So really some fascinating things, especially useful for kids who are not yet verbal enough to talk through what's happening to them. And then muscles, using those muscles. Kids don't use muscles like they used to because of technology. So doing push-ups against the wall, carrying a backpack with weight on it, pushing a vacuum, pulling a wagon are all examples of muscle use. And then helping them understand what's happening within them. For kids who developmentally are in that place, to help them understand, when this happens, your brain is sensing like danger, something's wrong. And it's throwing out all these danger signals to your body, and you feel tense and your heart beats and you want to fight or yell or throw things. It helps them to understand what's happening. And also narrowing their focus, helping them really tune into their five senses one at a time can be a tool that's helpful for any of us. These things are helpful for any of us, but we're talking about kids today, so we'll stick with that. But what are you seeing right now? Look around the room, tell me what you're seeing. What shapes are you seeing? What colors are you seeing? What patterns are you seeing? Then go to smell. Then go to what are you hearing? Close your eyes. What things are you hearing? Then go to texture. What do the surfaces around you feel like? So all five senses, one at a time. Making a plan is helpful, especially with the older age kids, I'd say middle school up through high school, because when we're in a stress response and that amygdala is firing, the prefrontal cortex, our part of our brain that thinks and is rational and can plan and problem solve, is offline. That's the amygdala hijack. The emotion takes over. So again, this happens to us as adults, right? It's just that our prefrontal cortex is fully developed, so we can usually do a better job getting our thinking brain engaged again. Kids, research shows now their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed till age 26. So they are going to act out of emotion. They are going to behave based on emotion. They're going to make decisions based on emotion. I tell parents all the time, we are our kids' prefrontal cortex because theirs isn't fully developed yet. They need us to make rules and set boundaries and help them make decisions. But just by virtue of saying, okay, let's make a plan to deal with whatever the stressor is, helps them get that thinking, logical, rational brain functioning. Okay, so what does that plan look like? What are things we can do? Humor helps, never in a way that puts them down or makes fun of their emotional response. But if we can insert humor, that helps. And then after the event, after calmness is restored, just to talk through let's talk through what that was like. Like, this thing happened, your body reacted, what was happening there? Like, what were you feeling? Were your muscles tight? Were you sweating? And then all of those things happened, and then you did this thing. So there was a behavior, and then there were probably some consequences to that behavior. And then, kind of talk through. I think of it as a bell curve, right? The lead up and then the calming after. Like, what was that about, and how can we get ahead of it next time? Okay. Less helpful is when our emotions elevate to match theirs. So if we have an anxious kid, it is not helpful if our anxiety is matching their anxiety, right? So important for us to stay calm, rational, and that it gives them kind of that safe person. It's also not really super helpful to tell kids to calm down or stop crying, because it usually doesn't work. It's like, if they could, they would. And so if anything, it causes more stress and makes them feel more inept at controlling their emotions, because in that moment they're not able to. And think about, just for you, what is not helpful when you're having a lot of anxiety or stress? What are things people do or say that just, it's not helpful? We need to remember that, so when we're working with our kids, we keep that in mind. I love this quote. When little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. Okay. So positive scoping, stress reducing strategies. There's some things we can do. If you're advising a parent who's bringing you an anxious kid, these are some conversations to have. Like, what does the schedule look like? When does this kiddo have downtime where they're just like in nature and not on a screen? What does that look like? Or are they constantly running? Are they sleeping? Kids need a large amount of sleep to be functioning the way they need to be functioning. Are they getting sleep? What does their sleep routine look like? Their bedtime routine? Is it different every day? Is bedtime different every day? Like, let's firm that up. Healthy foods. We've got RFK on board now. I don't know if that'll do anything, change anything, but gosh, are they getting whole foods? Are they getting healthy vegetables and fruit and protein and all the things they need for their brain to be healthy and their body? Exercise and physical movement. What does that look like? How do we make that happen every day, whether they're at school or at home? And then encouraging, and these are hard conversations with parents, because oftentimes anxious kids have anxious parents, and they're often not mentally healthy. They're struggling with their own life stuff. So the kids are feeding off of that. So as much as the caregivers can model their own self-care, where they can model, like, this thing has happened and I might be upset about it, but I'm gonna look at it from a problem-solving perspective versus a yelling, exploding, emotional perspective. How do I use good coping strategies, and how is that modeled for the kids? And stability, structure, and security, consistency, routine, so important for kids. Is that existing in their home? If it's not, gosh, I guarantee you that is driving anxiety on some level. Here's some resources. Of course, in North Dakota, we have Parents Lead, great organization that you can access free resources. If you're in a clinic setting or an office setting, working with kids and parents, you can have things out and available to parents. So I just want to plug Parents Lead. And then I'm going to give you a few apps. Now, these, of course, think age appropriateness, right? So probably more our older teens, even though we have 7-year-olds, with their own phone. Breathe to relax. That is all about when I'm feeling anxious, breathing exercises. It helps kind of monitor your stress response before breathing, after breathing. Mindfulness coach is another good one. Lots of tools in there to help reduce stress, cope with thoughts that aren't helpful, cope with emotions, help to regulate. So all around mindfulness practice. And then the virtual hope box. This is kind of a fun one that someone can even use if they're working with someone, a provider, counselor, therapist, whoever. Like you could go through this and just pick, like, let's do this for homework this week. Like, what if you just try some of these guided meditations, and when you're really stressed, try some of these distraction things or try some of these coping tools. They can give it a try, bring their phones with them the next appointment. Let's see what worked. Let's see how you felt. Okay, I didn't leave a ton of time. Well, we've got 15 minutes. This is my contact info, of course, at any time. If you have questions or want to follow up or, just want to talk through a situation, I certainly don't have all the answers, but sometimes it helps to process verbally. But with that, questions, comments, what are you seeing? What's helpful for you when you are working with an anxious kiddo? Any thoughts?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So there's a kiddo that comes to mind for me that I believe he's 4 years old.
Mhm.
He lives with his mom and grandma, and I know mom's gone at work a lot, things like that. And when she is around, she's noticed that his behaviors are a lot worse, specifically around her. So it's the
Mm.
clingy, it's the acting out,
Mhm.
things like that. And it
Mhm.
seems like she almost then avoids that time because of that. And, when he's with grandma, he doesn't act like this, things like that. Do you have any
Yeah.
advice on what could help the parent in that situation?
Yeah, the first thought that comes to mind is that acting out to gain her attention. She's gone a lot working. When she's home, she's probably tired. Uh, he's probably not, whatever he's getting connection wise from grandma, probably not the same as with mom. And so I'm just wondering if she gets home and engages with him in some kind of, like, especially one-on-one, I don't know if there's other kids around, but one-in-one activity that they can do together, like let's go play catch. Let's go make something in the kitchen. Let's sit down and color together. Like he has her attention one-on-one, um, in some capacity when she gets home from work or when he gets home from school. I don't know, like timing and everything. Um, but
Yeah,
I'm
yep.
just,
And that really doesn't seem like it's the case too much. It's there are other kiddos, and I think like you mentioned, it's usually get home tired after work, things like that. So that makes a lot of sense.
I'm just wondering if she could, and it's not easy. I mean, my goodness. I mean, it's not easy. No question about it. But maybe she could even kind of recruit him to be her helper in something that he would see as, important. Like mom's letting me or needs me to help her with this, and that elevates his, self-confidence. He sees her as relying on him and valuing him. But yeah, it just seems like there's something missing there, and he's trying so hard to get her attention, and it's having the opposite effect. But he
Yeah.
doesn't know what else to do.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea with the one-on-one or being the helper. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. We had a comment in the chat. I've tried blowing pinwheels. That's good, especially for those younger kids that, they're just not going to get the breathing exercise, but they get that. And you may find it may be interesting. They may be like, it's like, oh, no, no, do like me, go, right? Then that stress response, our breathing typically gets fast and shallow. And for kids that are dysregulated, you'll see that really intense um, kind of response with the breathing.
Do you have any tips or tricks for teenagers that are perfectionists
Mm,
and have anxiety due to that?
yes. Oh gosh, that's a tough one because the perfectionism is kind of anxiety in and of itself, right?
Right.
Like I have to do this way, not good enough. And one strategy to really come at that is they leave something undone. Like they don't, let's just say the perfectionism is related to their appearance. And the challenge is going to be, okay, we're going to, as you're getting ready, there's something out of place. There's hair that's not quite right, whatever. I just want you to sit and breathe through that a little bit. Like, I'm okay. I I look great. Nobody else is even going to notice. I accept me for who I am. Like, do something very calming and relaxing when they're at that place of my perfectionism hasn't, it's not where it should be. So we're trying to help them accept that it is okay, even if it's not where your level is. Because as they grow older, it's like that level is going to constantly be moving. And how do I continue to attain that level of perfection? And, that's not uncommon for that to lead to things like suicide attempts. Like, I just can't enough. The thought in my mind is I'm not good enough. That leads to feeling like I'm worthless. I'm not good. So it's kind of that it's a battle in their mind with accepting things not being quite to their level of perfection and being okay with that. Like I'm still valuable. If I got a B and not an A, like I'm still okay. I'm still a worthy, valuable, important human being, and nothing bad is going to happen to me if I don't have that pinnacle of success. That's a tough one. That can also lead to eating disorders. Uh, yeah, a lot of mental health repercussions for perfectionism. So it's almost like people who have phobias, a little bit different. But one way to deal with a phobia is uh, you introduce that phobia. Like you're scared of a snake, you hold the snake. You're scared of germs, you sit on the floor and eat your supper. You're scared of germs and you wash your hands 50 times a day. Like we're gonna eat and not wash our hands. Like I'm missing the word, but it's exposure therapy. Well, it's similar to kind of the perfectionism where, let's just leave something undone. Let's just sit with it for a little bit and feel that anxiety breathe through it, process it, talk about it, and bring some calm, even in light of the fact that I didn't reach that level. And see how it goes. It's going to be very uncomfortable for that person. Very uncomfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I see that a lot too in athletes, sports.
Yes. Yes. There's actually and I'm trying to think of where these trainings would be posted. I believe if you go to the North Dakota Health and Human Services website and you go to behavioral health, they will have like upcoming events or trainings. There's a series of trainings coming up by a provider out of Grand Forks, all on athletes. And it's focused kind of on college athletes, but would apply to high school athletes as well, because we do, I mean, the rates of suicide attempts and deaths among our athletes is high. And it's much of what you're saying, April, that if I can't achieve or perform to this level, like I can't have a bad day. That's not acceptable. And my goodness, we're all going to have bad days. We're all going to not be on top of our game all the time. So if you're interested in that type of work, there's a series of trainings coming up that you might want to tune into. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yay. Are they listed in there? Let's go take a look here.
I don't know if, I don't think those ones have gotten in there yet. But I know
Okay.
they were working on it as
Okay.
well as
Because I've
all of the
seen
other
them
trainings that we have.
advertised. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yes, there actually is one. Oh no, that's for the 28th of
Oh,
February.
here we
So
go.
never
Yeah.
mind.
Mental health and well-being of collegiate student athletes.
Yeah, that's the old one. That's
Oh,
it
that's the
happened on
old one.
February 28th. So they should be updated soon.
Okay. Oh, yeah. February 28th. Okay. So keep an eye on that link if that's an area that you're interested in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? We have about 4 minutes.
I'm going to post the post test. You can take a couple minutes to fill that out. And I'm also going to post the evaluation. You will also get the evaluation in an email afterwards too. So, but you can copy the email or the link, fill it out.
I always like to use these webinars too, just as a reminder for the consultation line for the Pediatric Mental Health Care Access Program. So I'm going to plug the web page on into the chat too if you ever need to consult on a youth that you are currently seeing or that family needs care coordination. By calling that consultation line, that will open the family up to care coordination to receive through the program. So
Well, thank you all for having me. It was great to be here and good discussion, good questions.
Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. And it was an excellent, very informative. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today too. Oh.
I'm just screenshotting the transcript, Monica, okay?
Mabel, is there anything else you need? I'm going to end the video here pretty quick. I just
No, we're
want-
good. I was just taking screenshots of the transcript because sometimes you're able to save the transcript. In this case, that's all I was doing. But you can
Okay.
you can close out. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you for joining us today.